Hi, I'm Jason Hooper, and I'm here with John Brisson.
Hey everybody, how y'all doing tonight?
Welcome to another Fix Your Gut live stream. Today, we're going to be geeking out on nootropics and mitochondrial support supplements. So if you don't like biochemistry or any of this geeky stuff, you might want to skip this episode and move on. If you're into this kind of stuff, hopefully you'll learn some stuff here today. How's it going, John?
Doing well, Jason. How you doing today?
Not too bad, not too bad. A little tired. My son was up late last night, so I'm going to try to stay awake through this whole live stream.
Yeah, I'm pretty sure we're going to talk about some many nootropics that you could take to keep yourself awake.
Yeah, kind of want to sleep tonight though, so I didn't really take any nootropics before the show.
Got some nicotines, some Modafinil, all the good stuff.
I've actually never tried Modafinil.
Me either, and I won't, but we'll definitely get to that later, because if everybody doesn't know, I'm going to be giving the dissented opinion on this one.
So let's just get right into what we're going to be talking about today. A lot of what we're talking about today is going to have to do with genomics. You can think of genomics as a combination between genetics and biochemistry. So we have genes, and the genes, when transcribed, create proteins, and proteins serve a function. So we're going to be dealing with a lot of layers of science. I've got one of my favorite copies of the Journal of General Physiology behind me. Some people, for Christmas, they get like a drill. For me, I get subscriptions to periodic journals. So this journal right here is dedicated almost entirely to Cyclic AMP, which is a adenosine monophosphate. We'll be talking a lot about that and how it works with the brain and with mitochondria. A lot of its mitochondrial support's also tied into nootropics, which is what we're going to be talking about today. So there's a lot of different classes of nootropics, and I guess we'll start with the Racetam family first. One of the standards of the Racetam family is Aniracetam. I got a bottle right here from Smart Drugs for Thought. They're not a sponsor, but they're based out of Houston, which is right in my backyard. So
they're a great company. I used to use their Ciltep on my son Abel. They produced a good brand of it. So I definitely do recommend them as a nootropic company for sure.
We should get them as a sponsor or something. Sponsorship's kind of funny because, you get a sponsor and then you're kind of obligated to say positive stuff about them. If you start bashing their products, they're probably going to drop you. So
I guess that's probably why I wouldn't be bashing their products, but then again, I'm going to give a little bit of the negative reasons why people should not be using nootropics tonight.
Yeah, I guess not having sponsorships kind of frees us up to say whatever we want.
Yeah, I guess so.
Anyway, Racetam family is, it's a series of amphikinase boosting supplements. Aniracetam, for me, it's a good focus enhancer. It allows me to keep attention for a long time and just work and focus and not be bothered by distractions. I've used this quite a bit, and if you're a beginner and you're just getting into nootropics, I think it's a good one to start with. The recommended dose is 750 milligrams. Some people go a lot higher, but with nootropics, you can always take a supplement. You can always swallow a capsule. It's a lot easier to swallow a capsule than it is to unswallow a capsule. So always start small, work your way up. I don't know how many times I've seen people on the forums or whatever just freaking out because they took this monster stack. They're like, oh, and Racetam's good. Oh, Noopept is good. Oh, centroflexamine. Yeah, that's great stuff. They just take it. They take it all. Like, this is all good. And if this is good, more must be better. And then they're like, I'm freaking out. Am I going to die?
With Racetams, definitely. My grandpa was a pharmacist, and sometimes, he says with medicine, taking too much can be just as bad as not taking enough. And a lot of that stuff could be used with supplements as well. And Hooper's definitely correct on that. With Racetams, you definitely want to start small for most people, unless you're extremely knowledgeable or healthy, and work yourself up.
And you kind of get experience as you go. and you kind of figure out what works and how much you tolerate, and kind of go from there. It's kind of like an athlete in the gym. You know, if you've been to the gym quite a bit and you kind of know what your stats are, you kind of know what your numbers are, you go in there and you know how much you're going to be able to front squat, and you just set up your rack and you're ready to go. If it's your first day to the gym in a long time and you're kind of looking at all the heavy stuff and you're like, I think I could bench, I don't know, what, like 500 pounds? Yeah, load me up. It's probably not going to work out too well for you. You're probably going to get pinned under the bar, and it's just not going to be good for you. So start small. So Interacetam. Interacetam, it was originally a pharmaceutical drug created in Soviet Russia. It was used to be a treatment for Alzheimer's. And in fact, a lot of these nootropics we're going to be talking about today were originally pharmaceutical drugs. In Europe, I believe most of the Racetams are still prescription only. They're not over the counter like they are here in the United States.
There is one in the United States currently being used for seizure disorders. Abel took it. My son did. He took levetiracetam, which is also known as Keppra. And it is used for both the treatment of bipolar disorder with great success, and seizure disorders as well. Works very well. You know, and it's the only one to my knowledge. It's funny because doctors believe that Keppra works, but when you ask them about other racetams, they just either do not know about them or they go, I don't think they work as well as levetiracetam does. It's actually quite comical.
Yeah, most neurologists right now, I think they're using more of the acetylcholine side. The acetylcholine inhibitors, like the huperzine A type drugs, is I think what they tend to use if they're using nootropics like we could get our hands on, and we'll talk about that class a little bit later. But so the Racetams, we've got other Racetams in the series too, and it's just they've added different chemical groups to the Racetam to make it behave differently. So this is phenylpiracetam. It has like a phenyl ring connected to the molecule. We have oxiracetam right here. Good stuff. These two are actually very similar. I consider these to be like adaptogens. So if you're dealing with a lot of stress and you have a stressful day, a lot of people take ginseng, right? Or, you know, rhodiola or something like that, you know, just to kind of help them through the stress. Well, if you're going to take a monster nootropic stack, it's a good idea to add some of these guys to balance out some of the stress that you're going to be feeling from the stack, because if you take a big stack, you're going to feel stressed out. So the oxiracetam, for me, it's more of a mental thing. I get more mental endurance, and I can stick it out. The phenylpiracetam, I feel all through my body. You know, if I'm going to be competing, and you know, like let's say I'm going to be playing judo or something, my reaction time goes up quite a bit with this, and I just feel like I can move faster, and my perception of my physical space is higher, and so I like this stuff too. I'm not sure if this is a banned substance anymore. I think Modafinil is now actually a banned substance.
Yes, it is. It is a banned substance now.
So, you know, if you're a competitive athlete, you might want to check with this stuff. In fact, I'm probably going to make this in the YouTube feed. I'm probably going to make this an 18 or older stream, because if you're not, I would say 25, you shouldn't be messing with any of this stuff.
Correct.
Leave it alone until you're 25. It's a bad idea.
The brain's still developing. I definitely would not try anything that modulates neurotransmitters in the brain unless absolutely necessary. Right. I gave Keppra to my son, but that was only because he was having seizures at the time, and it was the safest thing that he could be on compared to other seizure medications, which have a lot more drawbacks than Keppra does.
Yeah, like vasopressin, which is a modulation of caprylic acid. You know, it's a lot of what these pharmaceuticals have done is they've taken something that has been natural and they've altered it just a little bit and gotten a little bit different effect so they can get their patent and they can get their stuff going. So, John, what's your problem with the Racetam family?
I don't have too much of a problem with Racetams as far as their use of nootropics compared to some other ones, which we'll definitely get into later. The only thing I have for Racetams is that it does two things. One, it depletes B vitamins, specifically B6. When Abel was on Keppra, I gave him extra B6 because children who were taking Keppra for seizures were known to have nightmares from the drugs. And it appeared that the supplementation of B6 through studies decreased the frequency of nightmares that were associated with taking Keppra. And that has also been associated with depletion of B vitamins with other Racetams as well. Also, Racetams deplete choline, which could have some issues with people with mold toxicity and brain fog issues that tend to sometimes need the extra choline to help, with the blood-brain barrier and overall brain function as well. So as far as Racetams are concerned, Jason, I'm not going to be too terribly hard on them. I would just say that if you are sick, it might not be the best for you to experiment with a lot of nootropic drugs, even if you're suffering from brain fog, which myself I have in the past, and I know it can be extremely frustrating. But usually when you start going to play around with nootropics and stuff like that when you're sick, you're looking for a heap of trouble in a lot of cases. But as far as Racetams are concerned, I'll have qualms with them. They do help a lot of people, and they do have a lot of functions. A lot of Racetams can help a lot of people suffer from bipolar disorder. Of course, don't go take it if you have bipolar disorder without your doctor or psychiatrist knowing about your use of them, and so forth and so on. But there have been a lot of studies to show that it can help with that.
I mean, if you're sick, you're probably going to be working with a doctor anyway. I've seen doctors prescribe some Racetams, like Paracetam, for brain fog. I knew a fellow who was suffering from adrenal fatigue and working with a functional medicine doctor, and they actually gave him a topical cream that had Paracetam in it, which is kind of cool, I think. But, of course, they're going to deplete resources, but, why not just get a hold of some paradoxal phosphate or, some of this stuff, alpha GCP. It's going to boost your choline levels, going to boost your B6 levels. No big deal, right? I mean, it's kind of like you put gas in your car and then you drive real fast. Well, if you drive real fast, you're going to burn more gas. So just put more gas in your car, right?
That's good. That's a good idea, Jason. We have to remember that a lot of people are chronically ill when they're trying these things. They have a lot more things going on than just taking these Racetams to help with their brain fog, for example, like you mentioned. I mean, it's more complex than if I put more gas in my car, I can go farther distance and so forth and so on. So yes, Racetams, for example, might deplete B vitamins. That's known. It might deplete choline, but a lot of these neurotropics have not been studied in humans extensively. Racetams have been, because they've been around for a while. And just like Jason had mentioned, there's a lot of studies that came out of Russia. There's a lot of studies with Keppra that came out of the United States. But a lot of these neurotropics that we'll talk about later, there's few and far between studies as far as their exact chemistry, as far as the brain is concerned, the mechanism of actions in human beings, and even long-term safety. So that's why I'm saying I'm not going to be hard on Racetams. If anything, I would put them in the same category or close to taking acetyl L-carnitine, for example, to boost cognitive function in people who are ill. It's pretty harmless for the most part. You just need to watch out for B vitamin depletion and choline depletion.
Yeah, it's interesting when we talk about our limited understanding of the brain, and you hear that misnomer all the time, like we only use 10% of our brain, or whatever number they throw it at you, and it's like, well, what if we could use the whole thing, like the trailer to Lucy?
Yeah.
She's finally at 100%. Now she can, I don't know, what does she do? She does crazy stuff. But anyway, so.
Or what about limitless? Limitless. We can go on a diatribe on limitless.
Yeah, I mean, if there, yeah, that'd be great if there actually was. Well, I don't know. Would it be great because the guy had some side effects?
Yeah, of course. Just like any of these nootropics have side effects, you know, everything comes at a cost.
Yeah, yeah. But so I think the reason why some people feel that, you know, so some of the maybe the reason why that misnomer started was because when they were starting to um, do some of the early EEGs and stuff, and especially in animals, they'd say, okay, well, the visual center of the brain is here, and you know, motor cortex is here, and memory seems to be here, and then what's going on here? Like, we don't know what this stuff does, and then we start finding out later, well, okay, so the electrochemical side of the brain isn't as tangible as we thought, and you know, and then we moved on to functional MRIs and all sorts of other things to detect things that we didn't use. So I think that as our technology improves and we can start understanding the neural cascade better, and we start to understand how neurons work in a system and not just individually. So with this journal, it's great for studying like general physiology. If I do this to this cell, this is going to happen. And so, you know, it's good to have that understanding, good to have that base core knowledge. But when you're talking about the brain, you're talking about cells working together, and you're talking about these genomic fields and things that are created, and you can take it as far as quantum biology and all that stuff, and get into Jack Kruse land if you want to. But you know, we have to think about the full system and not just the individual cell. So when you say, okay, I take aniracetam and it depletes B6 and it depletes choline, so if I just take those minerals back up, or take those nutrients back up, I should be fine again. It's not that simple, and we don't have that broad of an understanding with any of this stuff.
Correct, we don't. We definitely do not. I mean, there's drugs that Jason and I could talk about forever that we do not know the mechanism of actions for fully and how they work in the body. You know, and there's been drugs that have been around, you know, since the pick your pick, 1940s, you know, 1980 with trazodone, for example. You know, so how are we supposed to know that all these supplements and how they affect us too as well? We just can't.
Yeah, I guess probably the biggest philosophical difference that you and I have are, you know, our comfortability with risk and what we're willing to do. And I'm a little bit, I'm willing to take more risks. I'm willing to pop some phenylpiracetam and go play sports and stuff, you know. And I've never been burned by it. I've never heard of anybody been burned by it before, other than, you know, some people that overdose and have a hard time with it. So I'm willing to take that chance, and I have enough experience that I know kind of how to stay in the game and how not to let it hurt me. Would there be any circumstance, John, that you would consider taking a racetam?
I just don't feel like I need it. I don't have brain fog anymore. My memory's perfectly fine. I guess if I needed it, I would, but I just feel no need to take anything of that nature. I don't know. Maybe I don't know what I'm missing. I'm guessing. I mean, I've used nicotine in the past when I used to dip tobacco, you know, and it would make you somewhat sharper to a degree, but at the same time, of course, you know, dealing with, you know, restricting blood flow and so forth and so on, nicotine has a lot of risk associated with its use. Even pure nicotine does, people. It is a vasoconstrictor no matter how you look at it. You know, so I don't know. I really can't really honestly answer that question. I just feel like I don't need them. You know, maybe it's something that since I've never used them, that I don't know what I'm missing. Yeah, that could be a possibility. The only reason why I gave them to my son, which we'll talk about, like Hepazyme A, for example, was because we thought maybe, you know, dealing with acetylcholine in his muscles, it would function better. You know, and Hepazyme A has a lot of side effects. And it's been extensively studied in China. You know, so I do agree with you that I am more of a risk versus benefit, and I think that a lot of these things have drawbacks that I would not use in my personal life. Not saying that people want to use them, by all means they can. I just wish that most people, before they use them, were knowledgeable about their mechanism of actions to the best of their ability and what they do take away from the body and the side effects that they could have.
Yeah, I mean, I don't need to use racetams either. I don't need a Porsche 918 Spider, but if they want to sponsor the show, I'd be glad to drive one around and give an honest review of the vehicle. Come on.
Yeah, I would. Yeah, you and I as well. I definitely would get arrested on the highway, speeding very fast. I would have to end up going to jail because of it, but I have a good time doing it. So that would probably be a risk I would take just to be able to drive a Porsche. I mean, come on. I mean, who would not? You know.
Yeah. So not technically in the Racetam family, but sort of developed by Russian scientists.
Noopept.
Yeah, Noopept. This is one of my favorites. I really like it just to get the sheer bandwidth of mental performance.
It's strong. It's out of all the little Racetams we just talked about, Noopept. They always like to throw out numbers as 150 times stronger.
All those numbers are nonsense.
Yeah,
it's marketing.
Yes.
There's no like I don't know, like Aniracetam is supposed to be 30 times stronger than Piracetam, and I don't know, like
what is this measurement system? There's no like.
And they're not even the same. They're not even the same drug. So
yeah.
It's kind of crazy. I don't know. They all feel very different, and you can. It's more the more experienced users will start working some combinations in and to get kind of the zone that they want to be in, for sure. But yeah, Noopept is like, it's like your it's like your diesel engine. It just makes you go hard.
I do believe that Noopept, my wife has taken it, and I do know some people, of course, like you and a few other friends have taken it, and they definitely saw a difference when they took Noopept compared to most of the Racetams. It's a big upgrade in strength.
Yeah, and that could be a good thing or a bad thing. If you're really sensitive to nootropics, it's probably not a good one to start off with, or you might just want to avoid it altogether. So you might want to stay away. We'll move into the next category, which is kind of the acetylcholine-ase inhibitors. So this is a nootropic that I've had this for a long time because I just don't take it. And centrophenylocyanine, it's kind of when I was a nootropic noob, and I just saw, like I was taking Aniracetam, which was one of the first ones that I started off with, and I was like, well, I need more choline apparently, and so this will keep this enzyme from kind of like, so okay, I guess I'll backtrack a little bit. So over the course of our evolution, we have developed genes that help us survive and to be able to propagate and so forth. So if we have acetylcholine, we have an enzyme that will break down the acetylcholine into base nutrients so that it can be used for other things, particularly functional groups to make amino acids.
Correct.
So if we're short on that, if we're in survival mode and we've got to be able to survive, according to our genetic code, that gene will take priority and it will start to break down. Choline and form, other nutrients that we need. Well, we're safe now. Like we're probably not going to be attacked by, saber-tooth tigers, but we still have that gene. And so you take some of these like huperzine A, it's the active ingredient in the popular nootropic Alpha Brain, and also in the upgraded self's version of it, which is Choline Force. And what it does is it sort of tricks your brain into thinking that it has more choline than it actually does. So the two supplements that I just mentioned, Choline Force, which I believe is a really good value for a nootropic, and Alpha Brain, which is something that a lot of people have tried and used. Some people like it, some people don't. I think it's more kind of like the Corona of nootropics. It's technically a beer, but it's kind of weak. So that might be a good one to start off with if you're just getting into it, or stack with other things. But Centro, this stuff right here is bad. John and I will probably both agree on this one because I won't take it anymore. Or I won't take any DMAE supplements or anything like that because of the side effects. And definitely if you're female, do not take this stuff at all.
Nope.
So I was trying to research like a few minutes before the show because there's this term that gets thrown around all the time called choline dominant. And I was trying to figure out where that term originated from. So I went back to the search engine that can search by date, and I just started searching back, and I can't find any mention of it before, I think, 2011. And I just don't know. I think it might be another misnomer where we're talking about autosomal dominance and choline got mixed in there somehow. What do you know about choline dominance, John?
Well, real quick, I do want to mention something since we were talking about acetylcholine inhibitors real quick. You are correct, the heparazine A is probably the safest out of them that you could use, because it does cross the blood-brain barrier and gives people, sharper brain, stuff like that you would normally associate with neurotropic use. But like any other acetylcholine type inhibitors, it can have problems, especially with muscle function. You want to make sure that you start with lower doses and build your doses up. DMAE, for example, has been known in larger doses of greater than 120, 150 milligrams to cause your neck muscles to stiffen, almost to the point where if you take too much, some people have reported very much trouble swallowing. And there's been a few emergency case reports of it as well, DMAE use, which DMAE does have some function when it comes to people with severe trauma disorders like borderline personality disorder. It can't help. But other than that, most of those drugs, I'd stay away from them. We have a lot of study when it comes to acetylcholine inhibitors, because I guess, Jason would be well aware of this. A lot of your organic phosphates can cause a lot of issues when it comes to that, and poisoning and muscle issues and stuff like that. And they say it could be a cause of original Gulf War syndrome. I can't remember the medicine offhand. I'll put it in the show notes. But there was a medicine that they wanted to give Abel that was linked to possible Gulf War syndrome that had the same mechanism of heparazine A, but was a lot stronger, and stuff like that. So a lot of these nootropics that people are using, they're very dangerous. I would not touch anything unless absolutely necessary, except for possibly heparazine A, which has been studied a lot in China and appears to be weaker and seems to be safer than most of your acetylcholinesterase inhibitors. But as far as choline dominant, I can't. I looked, Jason, myself. I've been trying to look. I cannot find any information on it. As far as its source or where it came from. I do know that it appears that some people who are choline dominant have issues, of course, with eating eggs. But then again, is it really the choline from the eggs, or is it the proteins from the eggs themselves? Some people, to my knowledge, if someone's choline dominant and they eat foods with high amount of choline, for example, a lot of them feel like they're amped up. They get more anxious. Some report depression. There's just not a lot of research to my knowledge. I've heard one time that it might have to do with histamine dominance too, going along with it as well. I mean, to be honest with you, it's just too much out there and not enough research or info yet.
In any case, this is kind of how it works from a genomics perspective. So there's a gene, and it's, so we have this ACH enzyme, and when it's encoded, it produces a protein, and the protein is keyed a certain way so that it's chemically attracted to acetylcholine. So acetylcholine will fit inside like a key inside of a lock, and it has the right magnetic properties to electromagnetic properties to draw this molecule in, draws it in, and pops it, and breaks it down, and it's gone. And so the herb huperzine A, or I guess the huperzine A is the chemical
alkaloid. It's the alkaloid from the herb.
Yeah, right. It's the alkaloid found in the herb. It's an inhibitor.
Correct.
And so DNA polymerase is another enzyme that runs down. We can think of this double helix. It runs down there, and it's not magic. It's not like I'll encode you and I won't encode you. It's also done by entropy too. So if an inhibitor is sitting on top of the activator, what's going to happen is, it's not going to be transcripted. It's going to be drawn away. So polymerase is going to be running down there. It's, oh no, I'm not going to transcode it. And if you have something that will activate it or increase it, it's going to be chemically attracted to it. So in this case, DNA polymerase is running around It's running down the gene, transcribing some genes, not transcribing others, and huperzine A is going to sit down on top of the gene, and it's going to push away. That enzyme so that it won't be transcoded. Now, this protein will not be created, and so there's going to be more acetylcholine. So it looks like some people have some kind of polymorphism or mutation in their genes to where they have the rate limiter on choline production is not as much. So they naturally produce more choline. And so when they have too much choline, they start to get headaches and stiffness, and I guess in their jaw. I haven't heard too much in their neck, but I've heard people getting like bruxism.
Yeah, most people that complain about DMAE overdose, they complain of very stiff neck and jaw.
Yeah. So anyway, that's one of the things. I know that Dave Asprey says that 1/3 of all people are choline dominant. So you might want to start with small doses if you've never tried them before, so that you don't get any headaches or bruxism or anything. I'm not choline dominant, so I don't know what it's like. I haven't had a headache in a decade, so I don't know anything about that.
Yeah, either have I. I think a lot of it has to do with is I'm extremely well hydrated, since all I drink is water. And I think dehydration surprisingly has a lot to do with people's headaches. I haven't got one since as long as I can remember.
Yeah. So I guess there's the next class of nootropics, which is built around PDE4 inhibitors, and the most famous in this class is Ciltep. So it's kind of controversial how Ciltep was created. There's this online forum called Longecity, right? And this guy started a thread, and he was like, "Hey, I found this study where there was a knockout of PDE4, and it increased cyclical AMP, or adenosine monophosphate, which creates more cellular energy in the brain and enhances memory function." So a lot of it's like, so how can we hack this and make this work? A lot of people were building stacks around this stuff, and I guess like one of the first stacks that were created was forskolin and artichoke hearts. And I know Tim Ferriss was a big, promoter of that too. And so anyhow, the reason why it's controversial is because now that it's been monetized, and everybody who worked on that project on the thread, they're like, "Hey, what about us? What happened here?" And so one of the things with the PDE4 inhibitors is whether they're like in Ciltep, with the traditional combination of forskolin and artichoke, they use non-select inhibitors. There's a stronger one out there. I think it used to be a prescription drug in South Africa, and it's called Zembrin. And in the States, you can get this over the counter from Source Naturals, and it's a lot stronger. So if you like Ciltep and it works for you, you might want to build your own stack, or just go to the Longecity thread and see how people have kind of made their own stacks, and added certain amino acids and other, what works with it, what doesn't work with it. Caffeine apparently kills the stack. So go and check it out. It's a good read. So John, what do you think about Ciltep? Would you ever take Ciltep?
No, I would not take Ciltep.
Really? Not even like the original watered down form?
No, I would not at all. And I would definitely not take your Zembrin either, just because it modifies serotonin. I'm good. I'm definitely good on that.
But that's part of how it works, though. I mean, that's...
I know that's how it works, but I don't want to modulate serotonin, just because serotonin modulation has a lot more issues that affect the gut than a lot of people realize. One of the most common side effects of SSRIs is IBS. So modulation of serotonin, unless needed, can do some damage to your intestinal tract. Because what a lot of our serotonin is used for, because most people think serotonin is a neurotransmitter only, But a lot of it has to do with muscle contractions. Your gut needs a lot of it for gut peristalsis. And that would be my only concern and why I would not use anything like that.
I hadn't thought of it that way before. Now that you mention it, if I take like a mega Ciltep stack, and not the trademarked registered Ciltep, but just I guess the traditional Ciltep from the thread, yeah, like I will have some stomach discomfort and some symptoms like you're describing. My body seems to want to eliminate, but of course that kind of works with all stimulants, right?
To a degree, but serotonin. I mean, if you had methane dominant archaea, SIBO, then yeah, it might come with some use. I try to use 5-HTP in people with that who need the serotonin because it's not being produced by their gut bacteria properly because of archaea overgrowth. But everyone else, I wouldn't mess with it. Unless you want to use its neurotropic value. If you discontinue it, things should go back to normal in a few days, more than likely. But myself, I don't like to do anything that modulates serotonin to a huge degree, just because I like to keep my bowel movements and my gut moving along very nicely.
So there are a lot of different prescription drugs that are being used in the Better Baby book and in Dave Asprey's Bulletproof Diet book. He outlines a lot of them, but they're hard to get access to. You can go online and get some of this stuff. Before you go online and get anything, ask for a COA, a certificate of authenticity, and see if what they're sending you is actually legit. You'd be surprised at some of these pharmacy companies, and they're like, "What's a COA?" And they're probably selling you, or who knows what they're selling you. So,
correct.
Especially if you're going to get something like Modafinil online or Provigil online, they could be selling you ephedra. They could be selling you just straight caffeine. Who knows what they're actually sending you? So you might want to get it tested and checked out. There is a nootropic called Adrafinil. I think that's how you say it. There's too many consonants in a row. Adrafinil. And what it does is, you take some of this and your liver metabolizes it into modafinil, and it's kind of more of a sustained go. Now, this is going to have a lot more side effects than any of the nootropics that we've talked about before. And this is kind of like an emergency only type of thing. Like if I get off a plane and I only can have like half an hour of sleep before I'm in the shower, and then I got to teach an 8 a.m. class the next morning type of deal. It's not something that I just take recreationally, or really, I don't really take any of these recreationally either. They all have a purpose. I'm not taking any right now, but it's probably, I don't know. Centro is pretty darn dangerous too, but there's some side effects associated with it that can be pretty hazardous.
Myself, of course, everyone on the forums, both forums, know that I'm against the use of modafinil for most people. Someone who I will not name at one time said that it was as safe as caffeine. It's not even close. A certain person doesn't even take it anymore. It's not good for you. It's been black box warning label for Stevens-Johnson syndrome in 10, but nonetheless, any medication or anything can cause Stevens-Johnson syndrome. We don't know why Stevens-Johnson syndrome even occurs currently, but the separation of the skin layers from your body is a very unpleasant thing. Now, granted, with modafinil, the risk is still low, but the risk is still increased more than your average medicine, enough for the FDA to put a warning label on it. But those are extremes, okay? And it doesn't happen to a lot of people. The risk is probably at most 1% to 2%, or probably even less than that.
I'd say way less.
Yeah, it is. It is probably way less. Now, as far as those extremes, but 1% to 2%, there have been indications of skin issues that you would normally see, like someone taking chemotherapy medication, or when I took Accutane, for example, dry mucous membranes, peeling of the skin and lips. that has been shown to be about 1 to 2% as far as adverse effects. I don't recommend modafinil because it taxes the adrenal glands. A lot of people in the bulletproof forums, some of them might be having excess fatigue, probably a little bit adrenal exhausted. So they'll take modafinil thinking it'll help me with my fatigue, and it seems to be safe, and then they end up burning out their adrenals a lot quicker if they would have had, instead if they would have done nothing at all, or even if they would have drunk bulletproof coffee instead, because caffeine is less adrenal stimulant than modafinil is. And there were a lot of people in the forums who did, complain about that. So myself, I would never take modafinil. I just don't think it's worth it. But if you are in relatively good health, its occasional use should be fine, just like any of the nootropics for the most part, except for some of the acetylcholine inhibitors that we had talked about earlier. But I am not a fan of modafinil. I've been quite vocal about it on the bulletproof forums over the years. I just don't think it's I don't think it's been studied enough as far as its side effects. We're now only starting to see them being reported in great numbers. Because with any drug, it takes a few years for side effects to be properly reported, for doctors to report them to the FDA. And like Jason had mentioned earlier about a lot of these companies that you order prescriptions online, heck, FDA-regulated facilities couldn't even get Wellbutrin's generic made properly for years. People were taking it saying it wasn't doing anything, and it wasn't. And it took the FDA, I think, 7 to 8 years before it finally admitted that this generic that people were taking for Wellbutrin was not equivalent to Wellbutrin at all. And that's in an FDA-regulated facility, people. So, with your supplements and with your medicines, always want to be vigilant, country of manufacturer, and, call these people out. Call them, write them an email, get that certificate of authenticity, look to see if they're good manufacturing, practices, they're GMP certified, and stuff like that. What you're getting is pharmaceutical grade, and, it's your health. You want to make sure that you're taking the right things.
Yeah, some of the downsides that I've noticed with some of these nootropics is that, I've noticed that with different people, it kind of just, whoever you are, it's going to enhance that side of you. And so the things that are good about you, it's going to enhance that. The things that you don't like about yourself, it's going to enhance that, unfortunately. And so one of the things that I'm always working on is to be patient with people, and especially people who I perceive to be wasting my time or talking too slowly, or generally incompetent or so forth. And so when I take, if I take the stuff and I go out into public and I'm dealing with somebody, it really affects me socially. I get agitated, I get irritated at other people a lot quicker. That's just kind of what I perceive. Other people, it just depends on your personality. I don't take any nootropics when I'm performing music or performing anything. I feel like it takes some of the honesty away from my expression, so I don't use it for that at all. And so I just kind of use it if I have specific things that I need to do. Just kind of like anything, kind of like your athletic supplements. I mean, if you took an athletic supplement, I'm thinking of athletic supplements, but they all kind of have other uses too. But let's say that you take some kind of performing enhancing drug, maybe even an anabolic steroid, but you don't work out, you just sit on the couch and do nothing. That's a bad idea. I don't necessarily recommend that you do anabolic steroids, but if you're going to do them, you should probably work out to get the benefits. The same thing with nootropics. If you're going to take a nootropic, you don't just take it and then sit on the couch and watch reruns of The Simpsons. You're going to want to take them and do cognitively important tasks, and really exercise that executive function. Some of the things that I've been able to do is really intentionally tax my brain as hard as I can when I'm on these, just to push myself to the limit. And then when I get off the supplements, I feel like I'm a level up, cognitively speaking. And so that's kind of what I use them for, just I use them just to get to a new level of thinking, a new level of consciousness, and then I get off of them and start over. But
Jason, I just want to say that I'm glad that you have integrity when it comes to your music. I'm glad you're not popping beta blockers like rest of the musicians are, lowering your epinephrine levels so you don't have that stage anxiety and stage fright, biohacking being a performer.
Well, I don't know. I think for some people, they who are absolutely debilitated on stage, and I've seen people who, and some of my students even who are I've seen them just throwing up. I mean, out of control. They just don't have control. And we can get into this in another episode, but yeah, that some people I think might need it. For me, I've never tried a beta blocker, but I never would, because I think, again, it takes away from your honesty. When you're making music and you're trying to communicate some kind of emotion through means of sound, I don't want it to be artificial in any way. I want it to be 100% genuine. I want to make that connection. But we're going to switch gears in just a minute. But remember, we're doing a giveaway. We're trying to get 100 subscribers on YouTube. So if you are one of our subscribers, you'll be automatically entered in a drawing to win, whoops, flip it around the right way, a box of Unfair Advantage from Upgraded Self. And so this is the premier mitochondrial support supplement. It's got reduced forms of CoQ10 and PQQ in a colloidal solution. Really, really solid product. And we'll send you some if you're picked to win. It's a pretty good deal. There's only, I think, 16 people who are subscribed right now, so you got a pretty good shot at winning. And I think right after this episode, we're going to do a drawing for one, so it'll be pretty cool. You'll get a box of 30 ampoules.
It's got the fixture, got a seal of approval up there. One of the best supplements that Upgraded Self makes, and I definitely stand behind it. Even though early in the forum days I like to pull Hooper's leg about it, but I definitely know that it is a very good supplement.
So we're also looking to raise money to get better recording equipment. So if you can spare $1 or $2 and hook us up through the donation link, if you go to fixture.com and look at any of these episodes, they're embedded into some of the blog posts. You can click donate. If you can spare $1 or $2, we'd really appreciate it. And if you've already donated, you're a rock star. Thank you so much. Guys, be a hero. Send us $1 if you can. If you can't do it, that's fine. Whatever. There were some other supplements we were going to talk about too, like Phenibut and whatever, but we're really running out of time. So we'll switch gears.
It's addicting, people. Come on now.
Yeah. I will say that, it works. It definitely works.
I'm not doubting that. The Russians studied the hell out of it. That and Picamillion. But it is addicting, and I'm not a fan of GABA modulators, people. They are heavily addicting. Heck, your standard benzodiazepines are physically addicting after 7 days. Don't think Phenibut's much different.
Yeah. Okay, so let's move on to mitochondria. Somebody posted a question on the forums about should we cycle our mitochondrial support supplements? It's a pretty detailed question because it has a lot to do with gene regulation. So, John, what is hormesis?
Okay, I like reading Richard Nicolai a lot. I don't agree with him on a lot of things. But he's got this thing on his website, Free the Animal, about the hormesis files. And Duck Dodgers likes to talk a lot about hormesis. Hormesis this, hormesis that. Simply put, hormesis is how well your body can deal with toxins. It's all about toxin load. Pick your poison. The body likes to deal with a little bit of toxins that we give it. It has a lot of positive outlooks on gene expression, has a lot of positive outlooks on a lot of different things when it comes to homeostasis and metabolism. So when we get too much of these toxins is when we have issues. So hormesis, just because something is challenging your body let us say. It's not necessarily a bad thing. You know, and a lot of these things that we come in contact with a daily basis, it does harm some people more than others. Mold specifically, I guess, could be one thing. For example, mold is everywhere. It's ubiquitous. You know, we're coming into mycotoxins all the time. You know, and some people are way more sensitive to mycotoxins than others. A lot of it has to do with aldehyde dehydrogenase. A lot of it has to do with genetics. You know, so a little bit of exposure can be good. You know, it activates the immune system. You know, it's a good thing. Too much exposure, on the other hand, can be horrible. So I'm guessing when Jason is asking me what hormesis is, that's pretty much what hormesis is.
Yeah. So flipping around to the other side, John was talking about using hormesis sort of to challenge your body to get a positive result. We can also use supplements to benefit our body and then over time adapt negatively to them. And I really like ubiquinol. It's a reduced form of CoQ10. And for me, it works really good and it improves my mitochondrial function. I feel like I have more energy. I just feel warm and I feel like I can do things. I can go to the gym and lift a lot more weight when I'm taking it. And it's definitely doing something for my mitochondria. So the problem is that our body makes CoQ10 and it's found in every cell in our body, concentrated a lot in the heart and in the brain and muscle tissue. So
it's why statins lead to brain fog. You know, why it leads to muscle issues, because they deplete CoQ10 production in the liver.
That's right, but it's rate limited, right? So if our CoQ10 levels drop below a certain level, entropy kicks in. It's going to be more likely for that gene to be transcribed and make more CoQ10. But if we artificially inflate our CoQ10 levels by taking a reduced CoQ10 supplement, then our body doesn't have any reason to make it anymore. And so those enzymes are no longer transcribed or transcoded into genes. And when you stop taking them, it's going to feel terrible. And I've done this before. You know, I've taken these stacks where I've taken CoQ10 every day for a month, which is a bad idea. And then you stop taking them and you just feel wiped out. For a few days, you'll feel wiped out. So the question is, which supplements are going to, you know, what are we supplementing with that's androgynous or that our body's already going to create, our body can create, that we're limiting that creation, or what can we just take that won't have that impact? So if we just look at the expression of a different form of AMP, we've been talking about this a lot, but the adenosine monophosphate, and we talk about AMP kinase, and those metabolic pathways, cyclical AMP, which is a different pathway too, we upregulate the ability to create ATP from which is adenosine triphosphate instead of monophosphate. So we get three of these and we put them together and it creates energy for our cells. It's like the currency and building block. We can do that, and then also the NAD plus to NADH up conversion. We get electron donors, and mitochondria can conduct electricity across the mitochondrial membrane. If you get cold and you start shivering, that's kind of a side effect of that effect. So as far as I can tell, AMP is not rate limited. As long as you're up converting, you know, you're adding the activators and stuff to be able to gain that expression, you're good to go. So your supplements like creatine, and I think this is kind of, I really like the supplement from Upgraded Self, anti-aging. It's like the little engine that could. Not too many people appreciate and know about it, but oxaloacetate is really good at the up conversion of NAD to NADH. And you don't have to cycle that either. PQQ is something that's interesting because it goes on to mitochondrial biogenesis. You know, you make more mitochondria, and for some people it benefits, some other people it really doesn't. Also with the same class, fulvic acid, anything that regulates that. Here's some Pure Black that I tried. Stuff tastes terrible, but it really does work. I think this is the best fulvic acid supplement.
Yeah, fulvic acid's some good stuff. Got some definitely some trace minerals in your fulvic acid, and it can help also with proper intestinal permeability as well. So it's got some added bonuses to taking that too.
There was a point where I was really taking a lot of this stuff. There's a lot of unfair advantage. I was taking a good 4 amps a day, 4 times a day. And I did this for about a month straight just to see what would happen. Then I stopped cold turkey. I didn't get any rebound from it at all. So from what I can tell, as far as if you can balance out your mitochondrial biogenesis boosters, you'll be okay. The ability to create new mitochondria. Now, it's the same thing with C60. C60 is an interesting supplement too. I don't have any of it here. I'm not even sure if it's legal, but it's kind of this like suspended solution of, you ever see those like buckyball magnets, you know, or whatever? It's kind of like that, but with carbon atoms, like a really dense thing. Here's the deal though, guys, with the mitochondrial biogenesis, if you want to keep your mitochondria alive longer, that may not be a good thing for you. If your mitochondria aren't functioning well to begin with, you probably just would be better off letting them go. But if you're getting good exercise in, you feel like, you're in good shape, you've got good VO2 max, it's beneficial, and they're going to do something for you. So as far as the biogenesis supplements, I don't think that you really need to worry about those.
Yeah, I definitely agree. Back to the fulvic acid, there are certain supplements that do increase intestinal permeability absorption of certain mitochondrial supplements, like ubiquinol, for example. D-limonene and fulvic acid both help with its absorption. So those are supplements that you might want to take in combination with ubiquinol.
D-limonene is very cheap too.
Yes, it is. It is. And stuff like that.
It's a lot cheaper than the ubiquinol, I promise you. So, it's definitely money well spent. If you're going to spend the money to take something like this, please stack it with some D-limonene. Jarro, I think for like $5 for more than you'll ever need.
D-limonene, one day I want to do a whole discussion on D-limonene, because it's sad that the biochemist that developed it, Joe Wilkins, passed away a few years ago, because I want to interview him, because that man, he had patents on it to treat herpes. I mean, it's got a lot of undiscovered properties. Most of the time we use it just for heartburn, GERD related issues, but it does a lot. D-limonene does. But as Jason was saying, a lot of these supplements, I gave Abel, my son, ubiquinol, and his condition affected a lot of his heart function, supposedly, because he had more muscle spindle cells instead of muscle fibers, so his muscles weren't so strong, and the heart's a muscle, of course. And I do know for a fact, no one could ever dissuade me otherwise, that ubiquinol does not work on the heart. The Japanese use it as prescription medicine for heart disease. It lowers blood pressure. But his ejection fraction was almost perfect. Even the cardiologist could not believe, with the muscle condition and atrophy they had, through most of the rest of his body, that his heart looked almost perfect. And I know ubiquinol had a lot to do with maintaining his heart function. Like Jason has said too, a lot of people ask about cycling off these supplements, and we really honestly don't know what's the best recommendation, because there's not a lot of science for it yet. Everything when we talk about ubiquinol causing issues once you stop it, it's all theory. We do believe that if you do take CoQ10 and ubiquinol by itself for a long period of time, your mitochondria function better, and in doing so, your body creates less mitochondria through mitochondrial biogenesis. So that when you stop, giving your body excess CoQ10 and ubiquinol, your mitochondria do not function at this optimal level. And since there's not a lot of them anymore, because your body has rate-limited mitochondrial biogenesis, that's why you have all these fatigue issues, muscle tiredness issues, and stuff like that. That's what it happens. And the same with PQQ. PQQ is the actual opposite. You produce more mitochondria, Why taking it through mitochondrial biogenesis, they may or may not function at optimal level depending on your state of health or what you're taking at the time. So if you stop taking PQQ, the same thing happens as far as, a lot of people suggest like fatigue, muscle fatigue and stuff like that. And that's because you have all these mitochondria, but they're not functioning optimally. That's why I like Unfair Advantage so much, because the amount of ubiquinol that's used in a supplement combined with PQQ is the appropriate ratio to work with each other, so that you don't have a lot of this issues that people have when they come off the supplements individually. It's a great supplement, and that's why I recommend it. And also, a lot of people in the forums complain about not feeling Unfair Advantage. A lot of it has to do with the fact is it depends. If you're in poor health, you may not feel it as much when you take it, unless, let's say, for example, that you have heart failure and you really do need that extra mitochondrial function to increase your ejection fraction so your heart works better. People like that would really feel ubiquinol and PQQ usage. But most people, if you're really healthy and you exercise and you have a lot of good mitochondrial function, they might see a bigger difference in taking Unfair Advantage, unless you have specific disorders where it could definitely help out. Heart failure is one of them.
Wow, I can't believe that's only been an hour already. I really like to geek out and do these kind of things, and we'll definitely do this again. I feel like we've barely scratched the surface of a lot of this stuff. But I just want to thank everybody for listening. I want to thank everybody for supporting us and keeping the donations rolling. Thanks everybody for listening, and we'll see you guys next time.
Hope y'all have a good night. Hope everyone take care.